Hello and welcome back to the Bird's Eye View podcast. I'm your host, Zach Worden, joined as always by Jori Negin-Shecter, and we have a super special episode for you today. We are joined by Toronto Blue Jays prospect and recent promotee to Double-A, Jackson Hornung. Jackson, thanks so much for taking the time to do this today, man.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
All right, well, I think we got to start with the promotion. Obviously, very well timed for us to get you on. I know when I messaged you, you may have known that you were going up, but I certainly didn't. So, congratulations on the promotion, and obviously a great start for you with the Fisher Cats this week's 7 for 12 with a homer, a double, a walk in just 3 games. I guess we can start with the promotion though. I mean, how did you kind of find out about that, and what has it been like transitioning to Double-A here?
Found out after the game on Sunday. Coach Jose Mayorga, pulled the guys in after a really hard-fought win on Sunday, and we did our chain of the day for our hitter of the day and everything, and then he let me and the boys know. And then I also got called up with Pat Gallagher. So who's a guy that, he's from Mass as well. I know him pretty well. I work out with him in the off season. So it was cool to, get to go up with him, and made the travel day a lot easier having someone with me, make sure I'm in the right spots at the right time too. So
That's awesome. How is the transition to the games been? Obviously, you come out of the gates swinging, but how have you found the atmosphere in Double-A so far?
the atmosphere is awesome. Coming from Vancouver, we got to play in front of a lot of fans,
Yeah.
which was, awesome. Great, a lot of great fan base up there, and so I think the transition, fan wise, it's not anything much different. It's definitely cool to be able to play in front of my family and friends, and being in the Northeast now. But I mean, getting to start out in this ballpark too is unbelievable. Duncan Park is really
Yeah.
cool. I got to play in it when I was in college, so it was a little familiar to me, so that was pretty cool. But I mean, yeah, the atmosphere of the team too. I know a lot of these guys just from spring training, and playing with them last year, along with our manager Brent. He was my manager all year last year in Vancouver, so it was a very familiar clubhouse to go into, which made that transition easy. And I think too, getting to face um, the Rockies affiliate. We played Spokane last year a lot, so
Right. Yeah.
I've pretty familiar with the arms. They have a really good core of arms, that we've seen. So I just think the familiarity kind of took away the nerves for that first week, which was nice. But it's been a lot of fun so far, and just trying to finish the week strong.
Yeah, no, for sure. Looks like it's been a good time out there. I mean, with the way you're hitting, can't not be. But I'd be curious to hear kind of about your reaction to getting the call to Double-A, just in terms of excitement levels. I mean, you're getting up to the high minors here. You're knocking on the door in a lot of respects. I just would be curious to hear about just your thoughts and your feelings when you got that news.
And yeah, I mean, I was, overwhelmed with emotion. That was a really cool, time for me. I've been just working for this, the past couple of years since getting drafted. So, I've always had New Hampshire on the list of a box to check, just because, yes, it's Double-A, and it's good competition, getting to move up the ranks, but getting to play in front of my family and friends, it adds a little bit more meaning to it. Having my dad be able to come out with my sisters the past couple days. My parents will be out there again tonight. Got some college buddies coming. So just being able to be back in the Northeast, close to home, it's just kind of added to that excitement level
That
overall.
that's really cool. I know for you, I mean, obviously, a couple of your, like you mentioned, going up with Pat Gallagher, a guy that you mentioned you work out with in the off season. And I know you get to rejoin Alex Amalfi in New Hampshire, a guy that I believe you played Little League and high school with as well.
Yep.
What is it like to kind of have the familiarity with those guys? And now obviously, like you mentioned, you get the family to come out. What is it like to kind of, have that familiarity on the roster?
No, it's awesome. It's cool to just, one, be in the clubhouse again with them, and getting to see their faces, face to face. I know we text a lot, and keep in touch with a lot of the guys, even when we're at different affiliates. But just to be back here with them and getting to see them on a daily basis, getting to watch Alex throw
Yeah.
on Tuesday night was awesome. It's we always look at each other when we're in the dugout for the first time. We're like, you're like, wow, who would have thought, 8 years ago when we were, freshmen, sophomores in high school, that, we'd both be here together. So that's, a really cool aspect to it. And, just getting to see a lot of the arms I got to watch pitch in Vancouver last year, pitch up here now, and dominate these hitters is really cool. And then along with the hitters too, having the familiarity with a lot of these guys, they helped ease that transition. Being like, this is kind of like what you're looking for with these guys. They really take into account, like helping each other out, trying to get everybody ready for each at bat. So I think that's just been really helpful too. Even guys that I didn't know as well have been really helpful. And even after 3 days, I'm like, okay, I feel like I've been playing with them for a couple months now. So they've really helped ease that transition, and it's been a lot of fun.
It sounds like it's been really special. And I mean, like you said, you mentioned that you're back to the Northeast, and just in general, it sounds like it's just been a really special opportunity for you just to make this transition to Double A.
Yeah, it's been awesome, and just trying to help the team win, and we got a really good group of guys, so we're just gonna keep winning and keep playing hard.
I want to go back to your beginning of the year in Vancouver because obviously you were off to such a great start with the Canadians this year, and as you get the call up, kind of coming off this insane stretch that you guys went on in Vancouver, the franchise record 11 game win streak, basically making that push for the first half title and coming up, just one game short there at the end. What was kind of behind that little stretch for you individually and for the team as a group in Vancouver?
I mean, yeah, being in Vancouver last year and being there this year, it's a little bit different of a team, but we still kind of had a few guys that had been there last year. And we had a lot of success last year, and then it ended on a sour note. So, getting to start this year, that first half we knew that home field advantage would be a key part in that championship series. So, we kind of came out of the gates. We were swinging the bat, we were doing everything, but we were losing close games. Like that just happens as baseball. And then we kind of went through a rough stretch, 8 game losing streak or 7 or 8 games. I can't remember which one. And then, after that, we were kind of like, okay, like we gotta turn it up a little bit. And that was the thing. We never really kind of like lost hope. I feel like a lot of teams can just kind of like, oh no, we lost 8 games. It's kind of just like kind of, roll over. But we didn't. We had a lot of guys who were like, we're still the best. We're the best team in this league. We got a lot of great hitters. I mean, everybody on that team can hit the ball 110, you know, whenever they want. So we knew we had the key parts, and our pitching was dominating. So we knew that we just needed to string a few together. And then after that 8 game losing streak, we won 5 of 6 in Tri-City, and we were like, okay, we got this. Like we're pushing back. We were kind of at the bottom of the standings, and we were like, oh, we just got to keep fighting. We know it's close. And then we went into that home series against Spokane, and we just kind of, we knew that team very well. They were a really good hitting team, but we knew we could hang with them, and we knew our pitching could really shut down those bats. And that's what they did. Our pitching just, really shoved the ball that week, and our hitting just came out. And every day it kind of built up. Okay, we got another game, we got another win. And I don't think it was until after Saturday's game when we tied the record that we knew we
Yeah.
were going for a record, which is probably a good thing. You never want to kind of think about that in the back of your head. But going to that Sunday, it was a really, really hard fought game. Ended up winning 3-2, and that throughout that week we had kind of been doing, our outfielders do a
Yeah.
little picture after the game. We get together, and one game Cutter Coffee was running in from either short or second or running out to the outfield kind of at a fly ball, and uh, Victor Arias ended up making the catch, but Cutter was already out there. So we're like, okay, get in the photo, and everyone thought it was awesome. So the next day, another guy went out there, and we're like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then we're like, all right, we didn't plan it. It kind of just happened where we're all like, oh, when we win this game, like this, we just can't. We just set a record for most losses in a row. We're gonna set the record for most wins in a row. Um, like let's just go out there. Like like this wasn't because of a few people. Like this was a team effort. So getting that photo of all of us in the outfield after that historic win was unbelievable. I think that's just gonna be a memory I'm gonna keep for the rest of my life. I mean, that was one of the coolest things I've been a part of in pro ball so far. So it was awesome, and the vibes were always high, which was great.
That's so special, I'm sure. Well, we've heard before, even from others, right? There's something about Vancouver for sure that I mean, if I recall correctly, we had someone on their kind of attitude was we're the frickin' Canadians, man. There's a certain attitude, there's a certain kind of vibe in Vancouver, winning or losing, where there's just, I think, a lot of pride in that organization, or rather that kind of level of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think too, just you look back at the last, 5 years, they've been in the championship. Um, I know at least three times, maybe four. So it's kind of just like, okay, like we don't want to be the group that doesn't make it. So, it's like you have that to kind of push you forward and keep, you want to win. But yeah, like the fan base is awesome. They show up every game. It can be 40 degrees out. Even when the Canucks were in the playoffs last year, we still had a bunch of fans showing up to the game. Obviously, they were watching on their phones the Canucks game, but it was just cool to be like, okay, like we can steal a couple fans away from the Canucks. And have them show up to a baseball game in 40 degrees. So, it's really cool and it's a really cool atmosphere to play in. And, being the only minor league affiliate in Canada kind of just, get kind of sets yourself apart from everybody else. You're like, okay, we got this, we're playing for these people and ourselves. So it's just an awesome experience up there.
I'm glad that you mentioned the picture because I did want to ask about it because like just what a moment and like you explaining that it wasn't really planned I think makes it even better. Like that's a picture that'll go down in history. I know the history made graphic that they did was so awesome, but really cool for to kind of get the insight there. I guess kind of just adding on to your time in Vancouver. I mean, was that your first time in Canada or have you kind of been up here before?
I had been to Toronto once,
Okay,
back when I was 14. I had a hockey tournament up in
nice.
Mississauga. I had been up there with my dad, and that was, I mean, I didn't get to really see much because we were playing hockey every day,
Yeah.
and those Canadians take their hockey seriously, so we were trying to win some games. There were some tough battles, but I mean, it was a cool spot to be. First time in Canada, and then getting to play and live in Vancouver, obviously on the West Coast is my first time on the West Coast, so that was also cool. But it's an unbelievable city. I mean, they got the mountains, the water, everything. So it's just a really cool place to live and play in.
I guess we can do the hockey turn now because you brought it up. Obviously, doing some research and reading. Obviously, we learned you're a big hockey guy, a Rangers fan, a guy who played hockey growing up. How has your kind of relationship with hockey been these last few years as you go through pro ball?
Um, Uh, it's t I haven't been watching as much
Yeah,
NHL as I used to. I used to wake up every morning and watch On the Fly. So back when I was in high school and played, that was definitely a bigger thing for me. Now pretty much the extent of my hockey is just watching my little sister play.
nice.
In the off season, I get to go to her games. And this year she played a lot. She had a really good season, so it was really
Yeah,
fun to watch. And that's kind of, I'm into the women's college hockey now. Like I know
nice.
pretty much everything about it. So I know, who's leading the country in saves, all that stuff. Because my little sister's a goalie, so I keep up on those stats, and that's been a lot of fun for me. It's definitely stressful because she's a goalie. That watching the games, I never felt that stress playing hockey. And I know my dad always would get stressed out watching us. So now I kind of feel for him what it's like to be on the other side of the ice. So it's fun to watch her play and everything. But I got to go to a Canucks game when I was up in Vancouver, so that's a really cool experience. Getting to go to a game, and especially in Canada, those fans are one of a kind. They really love hockey, and it's a really cool experience. So I'm glad I've got to see that firsthand too.
Gotta ask as well, because obviously there was that article where you kind of mentioned that you're an anti-Bruins guy. How in the world did that happen as a guy from Massachusetts? Because as a Toronto-based guy, I don't know if you saw, but drinking water from a Toronto Maple Leafs cup, there it is. How the heck does that happen?
So my dad's from New York. He grew up in upstate New York, and growing up, he obviously we lived in Massachusetts, but I was born kind of right behind Fenway. But my mom being from Iowa too, she didn't really have an affiliation to any sports teams. So the New York kind of took precedent over everything else. So I kind of just grew up wearing Giants jerseys, Rangers jerseys, and kind of just stuck with it. And I kind of think I fueled off the hate that I always got from everybody in school. So it's I think that definitely adds a little aspect to it why I'm very anti Bruins as well. But I mean, I still went to a lot of Bruins games growing up. No matter, I'm a huge Ranger fan, diehard. But whoever they were playing, I was rooting for whoever's playing the Bruins that night when I was at the game. So I never wanted to see my friends happy with
Yeah.
a nice win. Yeah.
You'll fit in so well in Toronto with that. I know obviously we're here to talk about you as a baseball player, but what is the scouting report on Jackson Hornung, the defenseman?
Oh, no, it's in high school I was a little bit different of a player than when I played select hockey when I was a little bit younger.
Yeah.
When I was a little bit younger in select hockey, I was definitely um I was a big body growing up, so I still didn't really hit all that all that much, and especially in America, we weren't allowed to hit until we were, I think, 13 maybe. I don't know. I think it might be a little younger in Canada, or I don't know how it is now, but so I never kind of really learned how to do that. So I was, just always tried to, block shots and all that stuff. And then when I got to high school, I was like, okay, I kind of want to score some goals. So I kind of became an offensive defenseman.
Nice.
I gotta thank my defense partner, my buddy Jack Merrill. He always stayed back, making sure that if I lost the puck, he could help keep the puck out of our own net. So I definitely wouldn't have had as much success if it wasn't for him. But yeah, I mean, I just always like taking the puck up, trying to get some assists and some goals. But yeah, I mean, I even though I was a little bit bigger than some of the guys we played, I did not hit. Everyone always asks, "Oh, I bet you were a big hitter." I'm like, "No, I didn't. I had no idea how to hit, and if I did, it was probably a penalty, and I was in the box." So I try to stay away from the body.
That's hilarious. I would imagine that if there were to be like a MLB organization like hockey tournament, I feel like the Blue Jays would fare pretty well with yourself. I know Ernie Clement's a big hockey player. So I think the Blue Jays, there's a couple guys right there that can obviously do a little bit of damage on the ice. So
Yeah.
really fun there. How did it kind of turn for you into baseball then? I mean, obviously, of course you're doing the hockey, you're doing the baseball growing up. I know you were a quarterback at your high school as well. How did it kind of end up being baseball for you?
So it's kind of a weird story. So like my freshman year, I played select hockey. Didn't play football that fall. I was just kind of focusing on hockey, and that was kind of the goal.
Okay.
At that age was I kind of wanted to play college hockey, and there's a lot of kids from Mass would say, BC, BU were on that list, and at the time, one of my teammates, his dad was an assistant coach at BU, so I was
Okay.
always like, okay, I have some connections there. And then as some of those guys started, getting commitments and everything, nothing was kind of coming out of it for me, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a year away from select hockey, play a year of high school hockey. And then after my sophomore year, I had started talking to some private school coaches and looking to go to private school for hockey, which would have been more focused on hockey. I
Right.
still would have played baseball, but it was kind of the focus was that. And then I ended up not going because I wanted to stay at Ashland High, play football, hockey, and baseball. And then after my junior year, I was like, okay, I think baseball might be the route. So I started going to some college camps and everything, and then I friend told me about Skidmore College, and I went up there. It's about 30 minutes from where my dad grew up, and my grandparents still live out there, so it was a
Nice.
really familiar
Yeah.
area, and I just I fell in love with the school, and Coach Pord was awesome right away. So I thought that was where I wanted to be, and I ended up going there, and it was a great experience. I almost tried to walk on to the hockey team as well. I talked to the coach one time, and
Yeah.
he told me, he's like, yeah, well, we got a lot of guys, and our freshmen coming in are 21. I'm an 18-year-old that played public hockey, so I wasn't kind of on that radar. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll focus on baseball. So I ended up not even trying out or anything, but I'm glad I didn't. I think that would have been a lot on the plate. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it happened.
I mean, at the end of the day, it seems like it was the right decision. And I mean, for you, I would be curious to hear about your experience, maybe as you progressed, obviously through university, and then ended up obviously being drafted. Like, let's be honest here, it's not a common story a lot of the time where D3 guys are finding themselves drafted by, big league clubs. But you had success obviously there, and I'd be curious to hear about kind of that process.
Yeah, so I mean, going into my freshman year, I always knew that you could get drafted, you know, at a D3. I knew that that had happened, not a ton, but it happened, and there was definitely instances of it. So I kind of just always had that on my mind. And my freshman year, there's a lot of older guys and had to compete for a job, and ended up early in the year having a couple good games down in our Florida trip. And I was kind of cementing myself as maybe not an everyday guy, but a guy that could definitely get some good at bats as a freshman. And then our season ended up getting cut short from COVID, so we ended up going home, only playing like 10 games. I think I played in six. So I was kind of like, okay, you know, kind of you know what's gonna happen, all that stuff. And played a little summer ball that year, nothing crazy. And then sophomore year came around and we were like, okay, we might not have a season. We weren't really sure what was going to happen. We ended up playing 14 games. Had in my eyes, not a great season, but on the stat sheet, still not terrible, but just not what I was aiming for myself, for my personal goals. Um, and then that summer ended up playing same league for summer ball, nothing crazy. And then going into junior year, I was like, okay, this is the year I really got to step up. We had a really good team. My class was unbelievable. We had, 13 guys that could, really do damage in the lineup. And we knew we were going to be pretty good. We had some good young guys coming in, and our senior class was very good. And we ended up having a full season that year. I ended up having a really good year, kind of working on um, growth just in the game of like, what my approach is like. I think in high school, I don't think I ever had approach. I just kind of swung the bat. So there's definitely some learning curves I had there that year, but I found a lot of success, and I was like, okay, like I can do this. And then I ended up playing in a collegiate summer league that year, the Futures League, and kind of going my first year full summer ball year with wood bat. So I think that was kind of also like okay, let's see if I can do this with a wood bat. And I had a great coach that year. Still work with him in the off season. He's now coaching at Holy Cross, so
Oh,
just having him there. And I remember one game I hit a home run in the bottom of the ninth to tie the game. And as I was rounding third, he told me, he's like, that's why you're going to be a pro. So he was kind of one of the,
Yeah.
the first person other than my dad that kind of really believed that I was going to be a professional baseball player. And I kind of like that memory sticks with me. I'm like, okay, like I think I can do this.
Yeah.
And had ended up having a really good year that year. So kind of just trying to take that into my senior year, and having those 2 years, freshman and sophomore year canceled. I had a couple of years left of eligibility, so I ended up going into the transfer portal for a grad year, so I could still play at Skidmore, but I could
Yeah.
talk to schools for graduate. And a couple schools reached out. Kansas State reached out, and I was like, okay, like it's a really good program.
Yeah.
They saw what I did, and they're interested. I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. I ended up going there for a visit. The school was awesome. Coach Hughes is a great guy. I knew that he would be a guy I wanted to play for, so I ended up committing there. And going into the senior year, I was like, okay, this is kind of a big step. Got to have a good year. And just kind of try to just take all that stuff in, not think about too much of like, okay, I need these stats to do
Yeah.
this. And like early on, I definitely felt that, I kind of got off to a slow start, and I was like freaking out. I was like, okay, I can't get drafted if I do this. And my coach was like, dude, just have fun.
Yeah.
Coach Plord was always like, you're a great player. Just have fun. I believe in you. Everything's going to work itself out. So I think that was a really, really big learning step for me, because I was like, it doesn't, like, the stats are going to come. You can't
Yeah.
worry too much about that. And that has helped me so much in my pro career, because, stats, people think stats define you as a baseball player, like on the outside looking in. So, you obviously it matters to an extent, but as a player, you can't think of that stuff. So that really helped me. And then after that, going into summer ball after my senior year, I played a couple weeks in the Cape and got to show some stuff off in front of some scouts. So it was kind of like, is this going to happen? Is it not? And I had K-State that I was going to go to in the fall. So, I was excited for whatever opportunity came my way, and I was prepared for either one. And I ended up getting that call from the Blue Jays, and it's kind of been surreal since then. It kind of still sometimes I step on the field, I'm like, oh wow, like I'm here. So it's been a long journey, but it's been a fun one, and I wouldn't change anything.
It's such a cool story. I mean, I obviously, the Division 3 path is so unique, and for you, being like you mentioned like the stats are what they are. Like they're pretty impressive from your time there. Two-time Liberty League Player of the Year while you were there, and then ending up with the Blue Jays here. I guess kind of like were you expecting the Blue Jays? Was there kind of contact with them in the lead up to that draft?
So yeah, in a summer game after the draft in 22, I had met Pete Holmes, the Blue Jays Northeast scout,
Okay,
and he had come up to me because he had just signed Alex
right.
Amalfi. So he knew I had a relationship with him, and Alex had mentioned my name to him. So that was kind of how that connection got started. And he ended up, he was saying, I'm gonna try to come to some games in the spring of your senior year and just all this stuff. So I was in contact with them pretty early on, and they were a team that I knew I was on their radar. There were some other teams that ended up reaching out kind of in that summer as well, but nothing was like, hey, like we're really we're gonna take you. It's kind of like, okay, like we like you, we like your bat, we like that you're a catcher. So it was reassuring, like, okay, at least I'm like getting these looks and people are taking note. And then like leading up to the draft, I was I was expecting, if anything, that the Blue Jays were going to be the team.
Okay.
I wasn't banking on it, but I think I was also in the back of my mind. It's like, okay, that'd be really cool to play with Alex, be
Yeah.
there. So, um, and then it ended up happening, and I was very, very excited. It was a cool thing also just to be like, okay, Alex kind of put my name out there into the Blue Jays world. So, I got to thank him for always mentioning my name. But yeah, it was definitely a surreal experience, and it's kind of a blur looking back on it now. Now it's almost 3 years ago, which is crazy to think, and or 2 years ago. I can't. Yeah, my timing's all thrown
Yeah,
off
time's
now.
all.
Yeah. But it feels like it was like a decade ago. Like
Yeah.
it's just like
Oh yeah.
it's a memory that like I'll always cherish. And it was, I love being here now. It's a great organization, and some of my best friends I've met here. So it's been awesome.
That's awesome. Is there kind of anything for you, like joining the pro ranks, that's kind of like stood out as like your welcome to pro ball moment, whether it be, like somebody that you ran into at the player development complex in spring training, or a guy that you've gotten to talk to, or just kind of like a moment on the field? Is there kind of anything that stands out to you like that?
I have two. Uh, the first one, it was one of my first weeks in Dunedin, and I'm getting up to I think I was leading off in the inning, and it was like probably the seventh or eighth inning, and our hitting coach came up to me. He's giving me the scouting report, and he goes, "All right, this guy's 97, 99," and he starts talking, and my jaw's probably just like on the floor. I'm like 97, 99, and I'm like I had never seen that. So I was kind of like, I was like, "Whoa, like really?" And he looked at me. He's like, "What's wrong?" I go, "I've never seen that before." And he just like shakes his head. He's like, "All right, just go." And I was like, "Okay." And I saw it, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty firm." Like, all
Yeah.
right, but it wasn't anything that was like, "Oh wow," like that's way. I had expected 99 to be like crazy, and
Yeah.
obviously it's very hard and it's hard to hit, um, but it wasn't like too crazy. It wasn't as unreal as I thought it was going to be. So I was kind of like, I just at first I was like, whoa, like that's like this is real now. Like okay,
Yeah.
and then I'd say like an interaction with like a player. I was doing some yoga in the complex, and I was by myself in the room. with the instructor and just doing some stuff to work on hip mobility. And I don't even know what pose I was in, because I don't know the name of them, but it was not a pose you want someone walking in on you and having their first impression
Yeah.
be. But the Blue Jays had just signed Justin Turner,
Oh,
and they were giving him a you know what's it called, a tour around the
yeah.
complex, yeah. And he just opens the door and looks in, and I'm just in this pose, and I like look up at him, and he just looks at me and starts laughing, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, "How you doing, man?" I'm like, "I'm good." And he just started laughing and walked away. So I was like, and I text all my buddies. I'm like, Justin Turner just walked in on me doing yoga. And it was just, I know in probably if, to him, it's, probably doesn't remember that, but, to me, that was really,
Yeah.
something that I was like, oh no, I was like, that's how I meet Justin Turner. So it was just funny. And, like those guys are awesome. Seeing those guys around the complex is really cool. And, getting to, kind of sprinkle in with them sometimes during spring
Yeah.
training is still kind of surreal, getting to see Vladdy and those guys. It's awesome. And, they're all really cool. I mean, I've talked to a few of them, Ernie Clement's a great guy.
Yeah.
He's always, he's always helping out those minor leaguers whenever they're on their side with them, helping them out. So it's really cool to be like, okay, like you hear growing up about like people big leaguing you, and then you get there and you're like, oh no, these guys are awesome. Like obviously they're doing their job and everything, but they know that like you're there and you're learning as well. So it's really cool to see that, and it's been that stuff's been cool.
I know we talked about you as a Rangers fan, but for baseball was it the same thing? Kind of the New York teams were the teams that you followed?
Yeah, my dad was a Mets fan
Okay.
growing up, so I think when I was younger, I was a Mets guy.
Yeah.
When I have some baseball cards from Little League that were like, oh, my favorite player is David Wright,
Nice. Yeah.
and but as I kind of got a little bit older, kind of into middle school, I don't know if it was the I kind of want to have a more hatred towards the Red Sox, but I had ended up being a Yankee guy,
Yeah.
and so I think that was more just kind of uh piss off my friends a little
Yeah.
bit. But yeah, so I had kind of transitioned over to them. And my dad was never like a Yankee hater, even though he was
Yeah.
a Mets fan. So, and then I got to college and all my buddies were either Red Sox fans or Yankee fans or Mets fans, but my roommates specifically were Mets fans.
Okay.
So I was like, and they made me hate those fans. Like I was like, if all the fans are like you guys, like I'm
Yeah.
like, no, I'm like, I can't do this. So that also kind of fueled the Yankees a little bit when I was growing up. So it was definitely funny.
So much hate in your heart for these
I
Boston
know.
teams. Oh, too
Yeah.
funny. Too
Uh,
funny.
Once again, you'll fit in very well in Toronto with that one.
This episode of the Bird's Eye View podcast is brought to you by BioSteel. Use code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order at biosteel.ca. Again, that's code Bird's Eye View at checkout for 20% off your order. For all your high performance hydration needs, visit biosteel.ca. Thank you again to BioSteel for sponsoring today's episode.
I do kind of want to pull back to where you're at today because obviously, you mentioned you get drafted as a catcher, you come up as a catcher, but this year you've kind of transitioned away from that and you're playing a lot of outfield. I know you did a little bit in college. But kind of what was kind of behind the decision to make that transition and how have you kind of found it?
It just kind of happened last year, kind of I think it was late July. We had they had drafted a lot of catchers, a lot of
Yeah.
young guys, and we had gotten a couple guys in trades. So it was a way to keep my bat on the field.
Yeah.
And I was coming in, I kind of been like, hey, like I can also do all these things. I can play these other positions. I've done it before. I never really had like a set position play growing up. I kind of grew up wanting to be a catcher. I got to high school, I played second base, shortstop, and then kind of my senior year played a little bit of catcher. So, and then in college, I was like, okay, I want to be a catcher, and I still played some other spots. But I always just wanted to be a guy that could, be on the field wherever. I always just wanted to play, and so wherever that was best fit for the team. So I think they definitely took that into account. It was like, okay, like he can play these other positions. So um, they tried me out in the outfield. I remember the first game I played in the outfield was before that, but Brent was like, "Hey, we got some guys down. You're gonna have to play left." I remember he told Dasan in center, he's like, "Hey, catch everything." And I remember I was waiting all game for a ball. Seventh inning comes, ball right up to me. It was kind of a little bit in the gap, but I hear all of a sudden Dasan yelling, I got it," and he just zips by me and catches the ball. I just stand there looking at him. I'm like, "Really, dude?" I'm like, "Come on, I needed that one." And then I ended up getting one the next inning, so I that kind of took the nerves out of it.
Yeah.
Um, but it's been a fun ride to kind of have that transition. Not only is the staff really helpful with learning outfield and getting more comfortable out there, but the guys are awesome. In spring training, you kind of feel that little bit of compete level where you're kind of competing with other guys for spots, but I didn't really feel that this year. Like a lot of the guys that I thought, could be like, okay, I'm competing with you. Like I'm trying to, win the spot. Were so helpful in, trying to teach me of, footwork and all that stuff. RJ Streck was a big part of it in spring training for me. I had played against him when he was in Everett
Yeah.
and hadn't really met him since he had been with the Blue Jays because he was in Double-A last year. And so it was kind of like my first time meeting him in spring training. And he was every time I was in the outfield with him, he was talking me through stuff,
Nice.
working on footwork. And so just seeing that and having those guys around me, just being able to help me with that transition really made it a lot easier. And I felt really comfortable then going into the outfield this year. Whereas I feel like if I didn't have that stuff, I'd be a little bit more timid. So that just made that overall experience so much better and helps me be comfortable now. So
Yeah. That's great. Did you get to work with noted Blue Jays outfield instructor Kevin Kiermaier at all?
yes, that was I forgot about that. Again, spring training so long ago, like
Yeah, yeah.
it feels like a blur. But yeah, that was kind of also a really cool thing. I saw they had posted like, "Hey, Kevin Kiermaier is gonna be here this spring helping guys out." And I remember I texted my dad. I was like, Kevin Kiermaier is helping us out in spring training. He goes, talk to him as much as possible. Like he's like you're gonna need that help. So
Yeah.
having him around just made it it was a fun aspect to it. Getting to see how and hear about what he did in his process and going doing like shagging with him. He was still shagging balls during BP, and I swear he just glides to the ball.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't look like he's sprinting full speed and he's just running 25 miles an hour and just makes every catch. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. And growing up watching him play and throw guys out, make unbelievable catches, was also a really cool experience. So getting to work with him was really cool. He's a really good guy. And again, like getting to see a big leaguer like that and have and see that they want to give back to you guys and help you guys through your career was really awesome.
No doubt that's really special. I'd be curious as well on the other side of the ball. Obviously, your hitting has progressed in a major way, and obviously now you're raking a double A. But I'd be curious for you about what the process has necessarily been like for you just continuing to improve as a hitter. Do you feel like it's been adjustments you've made? Do you think it's been familiarity, confidence? How do you feel like you've grown as a hitter?
I mean, I feel like in the past 2 years, I've grown as a hitter more than I did from when I was, T-ball to college. It's you get more reps, so I think like the familiarity kind of just helps in a general sense. But when I first got to pro ball, getting to meet guys like Jace Borfin, he's been a huge
Yeah.
part of my kind of swing development and hitting approach. He his like seeing his philosophy behind his swing and everything like that. I was like, that's cool. Like I'm gonna try that out. So I started working with him, and then last year in Vancouver, getting to work with him and Ryan Wright, our hitting coach, just kind of helped me kind of figure out what I needed to do as a hitter and to succeed. And I got off to a little bit of a slow start last year, and I think it was just I was learning a little bit about myself and getting used to that pitching. And once the season was done, and I was like, okay, I just had 450 at bats, like
Yeah.
almost more at bats than I had in my entire college career in one season. So it was just cool to be able to have so many reps in a short amount of time because you get to learn so much about your swing. And then this offseason, I made some adjustments, hitting with a couple guys that I grew up with, and getting to work with them and hearing what they had to say about my swing. Taking stuff into account. I think my swing overall has just gotten a little bit cleaner. But I think the approach is what's helped me so far this year. Just overall, I mean, I used to, I mean, I still do every once in a while, but I think I've helped myself not chase the slider down and away
Yeah.
like I used to. But I think that was one of the biggest things. And I remember Damiano Parmigiani I was talking to him during spring training, like, how do you lay off that down and out pitch? And he's like, dude, like, to be honest, like that's a tough pitch to lay off. He's like, for me at least, he's like, I'll take that fastball down and out, even if it's a strike, because it'll help me lay off that
Yeah.
slider. So it's like, okay, I started taking that into account. Like, okay, if he tries to bottom rail a fastball down there, he might get you looking on a strike three, but it'll help
Yeah.
you not chase all those sliders in the dirt. So just stuff like little things like that have just helped me with my approach. And I just try to, I don't try to think too much up when I'm in the box. I think when I think, I get,
Yeah.
in my head, and everything just kind of gets out of whack. So I just try to, stay calm. I think when I do my best is when, something makes me laugh when I'm in the box or something like that. So I always try to pick some type of walkout music that either, makes me laugh or makes me smile, something like that, that just kind of gets me thinking, away from thinking, oh, this guy's throwing 99 right now.
Gotta ask
So
what you're running right now.
I haven't decided what I'm going to do in New Hampshire, but I had been running Bring Me to Life, Bring Me
Nice.
Back to Life. I can't remember the name specifically, but by Evanescence.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
That's a
was
good one.
that was yeah.
It is that kind of the biggest thing that you found in the transition to pro ball is the bulk and kind of the grind of, having to do it so much in over the course of one season.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely different than college. You play in college, you're playing one midweek and then you got
Yeah.
a series on the weekend. You still got practices in there. Now going into pro ball, you're like, okay, you don't necessarily have those specific practice days. Obviously, you have long days where you're at the field and you're doing your work beforehand. So you're kind of getting those practices in there. But it doesn't necessarily feel like you're there that much, like you're doing too much, like you're like, okay, like this is, it's fun, it's baseball, it's a game, and you get to learn and be with your buddies 10 hours a day. And so it's I think it's more about the environment you're in. I think here, everywhere I've been, the environment's been great, so it's easy to show up to the field and put in that work every day. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely on the body, it's a little bit tougher than it was in college, especially being a little bit older. I always tell Arjun, I'm like, I'm not 19 anymore. Like I can't just roll out of bed and go onto the field like but having the training staff we do and all that stuff, hot tub, cold tub, and soft tissue, all that stuff, it helps out a lot. So having that stuff makes that transition easier. But yeah, it's definitely a lot on the body and for a grind for the season, but it's so much fun. So
I'm sure it's maybe a little bit easier without having to be back there behind the plate, like wearing baseballs all the time.
oh yeah, I know everyone always. I think it was my Tuesday night. Alex Stone was catching, and he's blocking baseballs and taking foul balls off the head, and I'm DH. I'm just sitting on the bench, and all the guys are like, "You missed that," and I'm like, "I'm like I don't miss getting hit by balls all the time. Like that hurt. Like I had bruises everywhere. Yeah, I mean it's definitely a grind being back there, but I mean it's catching so much fun. You see all
Yeah.
the. I mean it's behind the scenes. I get to see, what those catchers put in work wise every day in, day out, between catching pens and doing their work and then catching in the game. So I have a lot of respect for those guys that still do it. But yeah, it's definitely, a lot easier on the body now that I'm not back there.
How much did you find that being a catcher kind of helped you like think the game and maybe even as like a hitter kind of help you? I know you said you don't want to think when you're at the plate, but how much do you kind of think that experience as a catcher kind of has helped you in that way?
Oh yeah, I mean it helps a ton. I mean just being able to, know like what pitchers are thinking through at bats. And, I used to think like, okay, we got a guy on the mound, I'm catching this guy up at the dish. Like I'm trying to think about and reading their body language, trying to decide like what I think pitch we should call. And our pitchers have a ton of trust in our catchers here. And obviously like they're gonna shake off sometimes, but they trust you. So that process of, going through hitters and doing all that stuff definitely helped kind of transition to like think, okay, what are these guys trying to do to me while I'm at the plate? So it definitely helps a ton in that aspect of like how these guys are going to pitch you. But also like in spring training when you're catching a ton of bullpens, catching these guys all the time. You get to see a bunch of pitch shapes and like learn what these pitches are doing. So I think just that helps with recognition as well. So I think that just helped me as a hitter throughout my career too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Before we let you run, I did kind of want to, pick your brain a little bit about what life is like off the field for you. I mean, obviously, we've talked a lot about your hockey, about kind of the on-field stuff, but what are you doing when you're away from the field and then trying to get away from the game?
I mean, we don't have too much time away
Yeah.
from the field. I'm either sleeping, or, getting food. But, when we have that downtime, at least this year we've been playing a lot of video games.
Okay.
So we had a good group of guys that would, get on the sticks and, play some games. So I think that just helps us,
Yeah.
get away from the stress of the game. If you go over four and all of a sudden you're playing video games with your buddies, you don't think about that day. And two, like when you have a good game, all of a sudden you're on the video games and you don't think about, okay, that game's washed. Like I got to do it again tomorrow. It's like you get a little bit of time to decompress from all that stuff. I haven't been able to do it this year, but a lot of the guys like to go golfing.
Okay.
We just in Vancouver, the travel schedule is a little tough.
Yeah.
Everywhere so far that on Mondays, those off days, we're traveling most of the time. But a lot of guys like to golf, and I think I love golf. I've golfed my whole life with my dad, so it'll be nice being back up here and close to home. I'll be able to go out with him, and
Yeah.
then some of my buddies. One of my buddies is a assistant pro at a country club,
Okay.
so I'm like, hey, Mondays, I'm coming to
You're
play.
you're
So
gonna put that to use for sure.
yeah,
You know
What's
some of the courses too, eh?
what?
Know some of the courses too, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
what video games are you guys playing?
Uh, kind of do everything. I mean, we play the show
Okay.
here and there.
Yeah.
We play Rainbow, Six
Yeah.
Siege.
Mhm.
That's a big one. That I just got on that about a couple weeks ago, so I'm not too good at that one yet, but it's a lot of fun. It's a little, it's a litlittle
It's
stressful,
tougher,
but
eh? It's like tougher than like COD
Yeah.
and stuff.
yeah, it's a little bit more tactical, and I was good. I was just running out, and my teammates were like, yeah, you can't do this. Like we're gonna teach you how to play. So it's definitely been a learning curve, but we have a lot of fun with it. So it's cool.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I know a couple of my buddies played it and I got buried the first couple times and I just couldn't take it. So I had to I had
Yeah.
to tap out on that one. But yeah,
hmm
well, Jackson, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know we took up a little bit more of your time than I originally said that we would. So really appreciate that. Really appreciate all the insight. Congrats on all your success this year and we'll be watching and following along as you kind of progress your in your career.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was great meeting you guys and getting to talk to you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
For
All right,
sure.
that is going to do it for us here today at the Bird's Eye View podcast. Make sure to hit the subscribing like buttons if you're watching on YouTube. You can find us there at the Bird's Eye View Pod. If you're listening along on the podcast provider of your choice, make sure to drop a follow and review. You can follow us all on Twitter. I am at Worden_Zach. Jori is at Jori Negin-Shecter, and the pod is at BEV_pod. Thank you so much for listening.